The first thing that told me my wife was cheating wasn't lipstick on a collar or mysterious phone calls. It was the smell of expensive soap on her scrubs at 3 in the morning. Talia had been pulling extra shifts at Regional Medical Center for months, coming home exhausted and defensive. But tonight, as she slipped into our bedroom thinking I was asleep, I caught a whiff of something that definitely wasn't the industrial disinfectant they used in the ER. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "How was your night?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She jumped like I'd fired a gun. "Jesus, Miles, you scared me." "Sorry, just wondering how the emergency went." Talia paused at our dresser, her back to me. In the dim light from the hallway, I could see her shoulders tense. "What emergency?" "The one Cassie called about. Said Dr. Holcroft needed you for some urgent case." Another pause. Too long. "Oh, that. Yeah, it was complicated. Multiple trauma. We saved him, though." I nodded in the darkness, filing away the lie. There hadn't been any call from Cassie. I'd made that up on the spot, and Talia had just confirmed my worst suspicions. "I need a shower," she said, gathering fresh clothes. "Long night?" As the bathroom door closed and water started running, I stared at the ceiling of our suburban main bedroom. 44 years old, married for 15 years, and my wife was lying to my face about where she'd been. I'm a biomedical lab technician at the same hospital where Talia works as an ER nurse. Not glamorous work, but I'm good at it. I analyze tissue samples, run diagnostics that help doctors make serious decisions. The thing about lab work is that it teaches you to pay attention to details, to notice when something doesn't match the expected pattern. And Talia's pattern had definitely changed. The shower ran for 20 minutes. When she finally came to bed, her hair was still damp and she smelled like our vanilla body wash, instead of that expensive soap I'd detected earlier. She'd scrubbed away the evidence, but I'd already caught it. "Miles?" she whispered. "Yeah? I love you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut because I could hear the guilt behind them. "Love you too," I managed. But as Talia fell asleep beside me, I lay awake planning. If my wife was having an affair, I was going to find out with whom, for how long, and exactly what it was going to cost her. The next morning I made coffee and watched Talia get ready for her day shift. She moved differently now that I was looking for it, checking her phone constantly, taking extra care with her makeup, choosing scrubs that actually fit well instead of the baggy ones she usually wore. "Working late again tonight?" I asked, buttering toast. "Probably. Dr. Holcroft has been scheduling a lot of training sessions for the senior nurses." Dr. Wade Holcroft, 48 years old, divorced, the hospital's golden boy emergency physician. Handsome in that silver-haired, confident way that made nurses giggle and administrators approve bigger budgets. I'd seen him around the hospital for years, had even run labs for his patients, but we moved in different circles. He was upstairs saving lives while I was in the basement analyzing samples. "Training sessions," I repeated. "That's nice of him." Talia's phone buzzed. She grabbed it quickly, read the message, and smiled. Actually smiled, the first genuine expression of happiness I'd seen from her in months. "Who's that?" I asked. "Just Cassie, complaining about her schedule." Another lie. Cassie was Talia's best friend at the hospital, and I knew her texting style. Short, full of abbreviations and emoji. This message had been longer, and whatever it said had made my wife light up like a Christmas tree. After Talia left, I sat in our kitchen and made a list. Not of evidence yet, I didn't have any. A list of questions that needed answers. How long had this been going on? Was it just physical, or was there an emotional component? Were they being careful, or were they stupid enough to leave a trail? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? I could confront them directly, but that would just lead to denials and them being more careful. I could hire a private investigator, but that felt like admitting I wasn't smart enough to handle this myself. Or I could use the skills that made me good at my job: patience, attention to detail, and the ability to analyze data until patterns emerged. I chose option 3. That afternoon, I drove to work early and parked where I could see the staff entrance. Talia's shift ended at 7, but her car was still in the lot at 8:30. At 9:15, Dr. Holcroft walked out, got in his silver Mercedes, and drove away. 10 minutes later, Talia emerged, walking quickly to her Honda with her head down. When she got home at 9:45, she had that expensive soap smell again. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek. "Same as always. Yours?" "Exhausting. Dr. Holcroft had us doing emergency response drills until almost 9. I nodded sympathetically. That's dedication. He really cares about patient outcomes. The way she said his name, with a warmth that she hadn't used for mine in months, told me everything I needed to know about who she was sleeping with. Over the next week, I established their pattern. 3 nights, Talia worked late. 3 nights, Dr. Holcroft's car was gone from the parking lot 20 minutes before hers. And 3 nights, my wife came home smelling like soap that cost more than our monthly grocery budget. But I needed more than circumstantial evidence. I needed proof that would hold up in divorce court and destroy both their careers. Because that's what I'd decided to do. Not just catch them, but ruin them so completely that they'd never recover. The opportunity came when Talia left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. I had maybe 10 minutes before she'd notice it was missing. Her passcode was our anniversary date. Of course it was. Cheaters always think they're being clever by hiding in plain sight. I scrolled through her messages, looking for anything from Holcroft. Nothing under his name, but there was a contact listed as W, with a lot of recent activity. "Can't wait to see you tonight. The usual place? W. Miss you already. Miles is working late tomorrow. We could try your apartment. T. You drive me crazy in those scrubs. W. Wait until you see what I'm wearing underneath them. T. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through weeks of messages. They'd been careful not to use names or be too explicit, but the timeline matched perfectly with Talia's late nights and the pattern I'd observed. But the message that made me see red was from 3 days ago. Think he suspects anything? W? Miles? Please. He barely notices I exist anymore, too busy with his little lab experiments to pay attention to what his wife needs. T. Good. I'd hate to have to find a new place to get my needs met. W. Don't worry. He's clueless. Always has been. T. I took screenshots of everything, uploaded them to a secure cloud account, and put Talia's phone back exactly where she'd left it. When she came out of the bathroom in her robe, I was sitting on the couch watching TV like nothing had happened. "What are you watching?" she asked, settling beside me. "Just the news. Nothing interesting." She curled up against my side and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. Instead, I put my arm around her and planned my revenge. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead of going to the hospital, I drove to the Pine Grove Motel on Route 1, about 15 minutes from downtown. It was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions about why a man in scrubs and a woman in a lab coat might need privacy on a Tuesday afternoon. The desk clerk was a thin man in his 60s with nicotine-stained fingers and the look of someone who'd seen everything twice. I showed him photos of Talia and Dr. Holcroft that I'd pulled from the hospital website. "Yeah, I know them," he said without hesitation. "Been coming here maybe 2 months. Always room 12, always pay cash. They in some kind of trouble?" "Not yet," I said, "but they will be." I slipped him $50. "If they show up today, could you give me a call?" He pocketed the money. "Sure thing." My phone rang at 2:30. "They just checked in," the clerk said. silver Mercedes and a blue Honda. I was there in 10 minutes, parked across the street with a camera I'd bought that morning. Through the thin curtains of room 12, I could see shadows moving. I took photos of both cars, the license plates, the timestamp showing Talia should have been at work. When they emerged an hour later, Holcroft looked smug and satisfied. Talia looked guilty and kept checking her phone. I got pictures of both of them leaving the room. Holcroft's hand on Talia's lower back, her laughing at something he whispered in her ear. But photos weren't enough. I needed audio, something that would prove this wasn't just a one-time mistake, but an ongoing affair. And I needed evidence of how it was affecting their work, because that's what would get them fired. That evening, I installed a voice-activated recording app on an old smartphone and hid it in Talia's car while she was in the shower. The next morning, I watched her drive away to meet her lover, carrying the device that would record their pillow talk and post-coital planning. The recordings were even better than I'd hoped. God, I needed that. Holcroft's voice was clear through the car speakers when I retrieved the phone that evening. These 14-hour shifts are eliminating me. Poor baby, Talia cooed. Maybe we should tell Miles I'm working overtime more often, give us more time together. Can you swing that without him getting suspicious? Please. Miles wouldn't notice if I came home wearing a sign that said, I just slept with your colleague. He's completely oblivious. They both laughed. The sound made me freeze. Speaking of which, Holcroft continued, I'm putting you down for overtime on the days we meet here. Might as well get paid for our time together. Wade, that's fraud. It's creative accounting. Besides, what you do for me is definitely worth overtime pay. More laughter. I had them on falsifying hospital records, theft of wages, and conduct unbecoming of medical professionals. But I wasn't done yet. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered evidence like I was building a case for the FBI. I documented every fake overtime claim, every afternoon they spent at the motel when they should have been working, every lie Talia told me about where she'd been. I also started making my own preparations. I opened a new bank account and had my paychecks deposited there. I changed all my passwords and moved important documents to a safety deposit box. I consulted with a divorce attorney named Richard Kramer, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who specialized in cases involving professional misconduct. This is excellent documentation, Kramer said, reviewing my evidence. Adultery, fraud, theft of wages. A judge will have no problem seeing who the innocent party is here. What about their careers? The hospital will have to fire them both. No choice. And Dr. Holcroft could lose his medical license over the falsified records. Good. Kramer raised an eyebrow. You're really looking to destroy them completely. They destroyed my marriage. Turnabout is fair play. But before I could move forward with the divorce, I needed to make sure I had every piece of evidence, every recorded conversation, every fraudulent timesheet, because I was only going to get one chance at this, and I wanted to make it count. The opportunity came on a Thursday night when Talia announced she'd be working late again. Dr. Holcroft scheduled another training session, she said, not meeting my eyes. On a Thursday night? Emergency preparedness doesn't follow a schedule, Miles. I nodded like I believed her. I'll probably stay late at the lab, too. Got some samples that need processing. This was partially true. I did have work to catch up on, but I also planned to use my after-hours access to the hospital's administrative system. Not to hack anything. I wasn't stupid enough to leave that kind of trail, but to print out payroll records that would support my case. At 9 p.m., the hospital was quiet except for the essential staff. I badged into the lab and pulled up the scheduling system that showed who was supposed to be working when. According to the official schedule, Talia should have been off duty at 7, but according to her timesheet, she was claiming overtime until 10. I printed everything, schedules, timesheets, payroll records for the past 3 months. The pattern was clear. Every time Talia met Holcroft at the motel, she claimed overtime pay for hours she wasn't actually working. As I was leaving the lab, I heard voices in the corridor. Talia and Dr. Holcroft, walking toward the staff exit, talking in low voices. "Can't keep doing this," Talia was saying. "What if someone sees us?" "Nobody's paying attention," Holcroft replied. "Besides, even if they were, what are they going to do? Report the head of emergency medicine for having coffee with a nurse?" "It's not just coffee, Wade. No, it's not. It's the best thing that's happened to me in years." They stopped walking, and I heard the soft sound of kissing. My wife, kissing another man in the hallway of the hospital where we both worked. "I should get home," Talia said. "Miles will be wondering where I am." "Let him wonder. You deserve better than some lab tech who doesn't appreciate what he has." "He's not that bad, isn't he? When's the last time he took you somewhere nice? When's the last time he made you feel like a woman instead of a roommate?" I couldn't hear Talia's response, but a moment later they were walking again, their voices fading as they headed for the exit. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. In the parking lot, I watched Holcroft kiss my wife goodbye next to her car, his hands roaming over her body like he owned her. The rage that filled me was cold and calculating. They thought I was pathetic, a clueless lab tech who didn't deserve his wife's attention. They were stealing from the hospital, lying to everyone around them, and laughing about how stupid I was. But they were about to learn that the quiet guy in the basement lab had been paying very close attention indeed. I spent the weekend organizing my evidence into a presentation that would have made my college professors proud. Photos, audio recordings, financial documents, timeline analysis, everything cross-referenced and annotated. By Sunday night, I had a file that told the complete story of my wife's affair and the fraud she and Dr. Holcroft were committing. Monday morning, I called Leah Morrison, an old friend who worked in human resources at the hospital. We'd known each other since college, and she was one of the few people at Regional Medical who treated me like an equal instead of just another lab tech. "Miles, what's up? You sound serious." "I need to report a personnel violation. Can we meet somewhere private?" "How about my office at lunch? I'll make sure we're not interrupted." At 12:30, I sat across from Leah's desk and laid out the evidence. She listened without interruption as I walked through the timeline, played selected audio clips, and showed her the falsified overtime records. "Jesus, Miles," she said when I finished. This is really bad." "For them, yes." Leah looked at me carefully. "You know this is going to destroy both their careers, right? And your marriage." "My marriage was destroyed the moment Talia decided to start sleeping with her boss and stealing money to pay for their motel rooms." She winced at my bluntness. "What do you want me to do with this?" "Start an investigation. I want them both fired, and I want Dr. Holcroft reported to the state medical board." "Miles, I have to ask, how did you get these recordings?" "The motel clerk recognized them and called me when they checked in. I recorded them in the parking lot with a long-range microphone." It wasn't entirely true, but it was plausible and legal. Leah didn't need to know about the phone I'd hidden in Talia's car. "And the financial records?" "I have access to the scheduling system for lab coordination. I noticed the discrepancies and printed them out." Also true, technically. Leah nodded slowly. "I'll need to bring this to Ms. Brand," she said, referring to the hospital's HR director. "She'll want to interview you formally." "That's fine. But Leah, I want this handled quietly until you're ready to move. If they get wind of an investigation, they'll just be more careful." "Understood. Can you come in tomorrow morning, say 8 a.m.? "I'll be there." That evening, I watched Talia get ready for another late shift with clinical detachment. She spent extra time on her makeup, chose scrubs that showed off her figure, and sprayed on perfume that she definitely wasn't wearing for the benefit of trauma patients. "Working late again?" I asked. "Dr. Holcroft wants to review some new protocols with the senior staff." "Sounds important." "It is. Patient care is his top priority." I almost laughed. Patient care, right. "I might be late too," I said. "Got some equipment maintenance scheduled after hours." Talia barely looked up from her phone. "Okay, don't wait up." Don't wait up. like I was some kind of inconvenience she had to manage around her real life. After she left, I poured myself a beer and sat on our couch, looking around the house we'd bought together 7 years ago. It wasn't much, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood, but it had been ours. We'd painted these walls together, planted the garden out back, talked about maybe having kids someday. All of that was over now. By tomorrow afternoon, Talia's world would start collapsing, and she'd have no one to blame but herself. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Ms. Brand from HR. Leah asked me to confirm your 8 a.m. appointment tomorrow. Please bring all documentation." I texted back, "I'll be there." The next morning, I dressed carefully in my best shirt and tie. If I was going to destroy my wife's career, I wanted to look professional doing it. Ms. Brand's office was on the 3rd floor of the administrative wing, a place I'd never had reason to visit before. She was a stern-looking woman in her 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Conrad," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk, "Leah has briefed me on your concerns. I understand you have evidence of misconduct?" For the next hour, I walked through my presentation again. Ms. Brand took notes, asked clarifying questions, and examined every document with the thoroughness of a prosecutor preparing for trial. "This is very comprehensive," she said finally, "and very damaging. You understand that if we pursue this investigation, both Mrs. Conrad and Dr. Holcroft will likely be terminated?" "I understand." "And you're prepared for the personal consequences? This will end your marriage." "My marriage ended when my wife decided to steal money to pay for her affair. I'm just making it official." Ms. Brand nodded. "We'll need to conduct formal interviews with both employees. I'll schedule them for this afternoon, separately, of course. Can you be available in case we need clarification on any of your evidence?" "Absolutely. One more thing, Mr. Conrad. This investigation needs to remain confidential until we've completed our review. You cannot discuss this with anyone, including your wife." "Understood." I left the meeting feeling lighter than I had in months. The trap was set, and there was no way for Talia and Holcroft to escape what was coming. At lunch, I sat in the hospital cafeteria and watched Dr. Holcroft hold court at a table full of nurses and residents. He was telling some story that had them all laughing, playing the role of the charming, dedicated physician who cared so much about his patients and staff. In a few hours, he'd be sitting in Ms. Brand's office trying to explain why he'd been falsifying records and having a fate with a subordinate on hospital time. I couldn't wait. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Talia. "Something weird is happening. HR called me for a meeting. Do you know anything about this?" I texted back, "No idea. Probably just routine stuff." 20 minutes later. "They're asking about my schedule and overtime. Miles, I'm scared." I didn't respond. Let her be scared. She should have thought about consequences before she decided to betray me. At 4:30, Leah called. "It's done," she said. "Both interviews completed. Ms. Brand wants to see you at 5. When I walked into Ms. Brand's office, she looked tired but satisfied. "Both employees have been suspended pending the completion of our investigation," she said. Dr. Holcroft denied the affair but couldn't explain the scheduling discrepancies. Mrs. Conrad admitted to the relationship but claimed it didn't affect her work performance. "What happens now?" "We'll complete our review by the end of the week, but based on what I've seen today, both employees will be terminated. Dr. Holcroft's case will also be referred to the State Medical Board and possibly to law enforcement for the wage theft." I nodded. "Thank you. Mr. Conrad, I want you to know that the hospital appreciates employees who report misconduct, even when it's personally difficult. Your actions today have protected the integrity of our institution." As I drove home, I wondered what I'd find. Would Talia be there, waiting to confront me? Would she have figured out that I was behind the investigation? The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Talia's car wasn't there. I went inside, opened a beer, and waited. She came home at 8, her face red from crying. "They suspended me," she said without preamble. "Someone reported me and Wade for having an affair." "Jesus, Talia, is it true?" She looked at me like I was an idiot. "Of course it's not true. Someone is trying to destroy my career with lies and rumors." I almost admired her commitment to the lie, even now. Who would do something like that? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And when I do, I'm going to sue them for everything they're worth. What did HR say exactly? They had photos, Miles. Photos of me and Wade at some motel. But they were fake. They had to be. And they had recordings that sounded like us. But anyone can fake audio these days. That sounds serious. It's a setup. Someone is trying to frame us because Wade is up for department head next year. This is sabotage. I nodded sympathetically. What are you going to do? Fight it. Wade's getting a lawyer and so am I. We're going to prove this is all fabricated and sue the hospital for wrongful termination. That sounds expensive. For the first time, Talia looked uncertain. Wade says he'll help with the legal costs. That's generous of him. He's a good man, Miles. A good doctor. He doesn't deserve this. I finished my beer and stood up. I'm sure it will all work out. But as I headed upstairs to bed, I was already planning the next phase of my revenge, because destroying their careers was just the beginning. The next morning, I called Richard Kramer and told him to file for divorce. "Are you sure you want to move this quickly?" he asked. "Sometimes these things can be worked out." "There's nothing to work out. File the papers." "What grounds?" "Adultery, with evidence. I'll email you everything." "And what are you seeking?" "The house, half the assets, and her half of my pension. She can keep her car and her clothes." "That's pretty aggressive, Miles." "She committed fraud to pay for her affair. I think aggressive is appropriate." 2 hours later, a process server knocked on our door. Talia answered it, still in her robe, looking like she hadn't slept. "Talia Conrad?" "Yes?" "You've been served." I watched from the kitchen as she read the divorce papers, her face going white. "Miles!" she screamed. "Miles, get in here right now." I walked into the living room slowly, like I had all the time in the world. "What is this?" she demanded, waving the papers. "Divorce papers. I thought that was obvious." "You're divorcing me? Now? When I'm dealing with this bullshit at work?" "I'm divorcing you because of what you've been doing at work. And after work. And during work, apparently." She stared at me. "You think I'm having an affair. I know you're having an affair. I have photos, recordings, financial records, and a timeline going back 3 months. The color drained from her face. "You've been spying on me." "I've been documenting your criminal activity. There's a difference." "Criminal activity?" "Fraud, theft of wages, conduct unbecoming of a medical professional. Should I go on?" Talia sank into our couch, the divorce papers scattered around her feet. "You did this. You reported me to HR. I reported 2 hospital employees who were stealing money and having an affair on company time. The fact that one of them happened to be my wife is just unfortunate timing." "You bastard. You complete bastard." "I'm not the one who cheated, Talia. I'm just the one who caught you." She started crying then, big heaving sobs that might have moved me 6 months ago. Now they just annoyed me. "Miles, please. We can work this out. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake. Wade means nothing to me. Wade means enough that you stole money to pay for motel rooms with him. That wasn't stealing. I worked those hours." "No, you slept with your boss during those hours. There's a difference, although I can see how you might be confused." She looked up at me with something like hatred. "When did you become so cruel?" "When I found out my wife thought I was too stupid to notice she was cheating on me." My phone rang. Richard Kramer. "Miles, we need to talk. Can you come to my office?" "On my way." I looked down at Talia, still crying on our couch. "I'm going to see my lawyer. When I get back, I'd appreciate it if you were somewhere else." "This is my house, too." "Read the papers. I'm seeking sole ownership as part of the divorce settlement. You might want to start looking for an apartment. Kramer's office was downtown, in a brick building that had probably been elegant 50 years ago. His secretary showed me into a conference room where he was waiting with a stack of documents. "I've reviewed your evidence," he said without preamble. "It's excellent, comprehensive, well-documented, legally obtained. A judge will have no problem seeing that your wife committed adultery and fraud." "Good. But there's something else. I made some calls about Dr. Holcroft. Turns out this isn't his first workplace affair. He was disciplined at his previous hospital for similar conduct." "Really?" "Really. Which means the medical board is going to take this very seriously. He could lose his license." "Even better." Kramer studied me. "You really want to destroy them both, don't you?" "They destroyed my marriage and stole money from the hospital. Yes, I want them destroyed." "Fair enough. The divorce should be straightforward. Maine is a no-fault state, but adultery and financial misconduct still matter for asset division. You'll get the house, probably more than half the liquid assets, and she'll be responsible for her own legal fees." "How long?" 6 months, maybe less if she doesn't contest it." "She'll contest it. Then we'll present the evidence in open court. Trust me, after that, she won't want to drag things out." When I got home, Talia was gone. So were most of her clothes and her car. She'd left a note on the kitchen table. "This isn't over. I'm going to prove you fabricated this evidence, and then I'm going to take you for everything you're worth." I crumpled up the note and threw it away. Let her try. I had documentation of everything, and all of it was legitimate. She could hire the best lawyer in Maine, and it wouldn't matter. That evening, I got a call from Leah. "Miles, I thought you should know. The hospital completed its investigation. Both Talia and Dr. Holcroft were terminated for cause." "What about criminal charges?" "The DA is reviewing the case. The amount they stole probably won't result in jail time, but they'll have to pay restitution." "And the medical board?" "Dr. Holcroft's case has been referred. Even if he keeps his license, he'll never work at a decent hospital again." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. For the first time since I'd discovered Talia's affair, I wasn't angry or hurt or planning my next move. I was just done. But the peace didn't last long. The next morning, I woke up to find my car keyed, deep scratches running from headlight to taillight on both sides. A note was tucked under the windshield wiper. "This is just the beginning." I called the police and filed a report, then had the car towed to a body shop. The damage was extensive, probably $3,000 worth of paint and bodywork. That afternoon, Talia called. "I didn't key your car," she said without preamble. "I didn't say you did." "But you think I did. I think you're angry and looking for ways to hurt me. Vandalizing my car seems like something you might do." "It wasn't me, Miles, but I know who it was." "Who?" "Wade. He's furious about losing his job. He blames you for everything. He should blame himself for sleeping with a married woman and stealing money. He says you fabricated the evidence. He can say whatever he wants. The evidence speaks for itself. Miles, you need to be careful. Wade isn't handling this well." There was something in her voice that made me pay attention. "What do you mean?" "He's been drinking, a lot, and he keeps talking about how you ruined his life, how he's going to make you pay." "Is that a threat?" "I don't know. Maybe. I don't want you to get hurt." "Worried about your meal ticket? Worried about my husband, ex-husband, whatever." I almost believed her. Almost. "Where are you staying?" "With Cassie. Wade wanted me to move in with him, but what?" "But I'm starting to see what kind of man he really is. When things were good, when he was getting what he wanted, he was charming. Now that there are consequences, he's showing his true colors. Imagine that." "Miles, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I messed up. I messed up everything." Yes, you did. Is there any chance at all that we could work this out? No. I love you. You loved the security I provided. You loved having someone to pay the bills while you played around with your boss, but you didn't love me, Talia. If you had, you never would have done what you did. She was crying when I hung up, but her warning about Holcroft stayed with me. A man who'd lost his career, his reputation, and his future because of my evidence might indeed be looking for revenge. I made sure my doors were locked that night and kept my phone close. I didn't have to wait long to find out what he had in mind. 3 days later, Dr. Wade Holcroft was waiting for me in the hospital parking lot when I got off work. He looked terrible. Unshaven, bloodshot eyes, wearing a wrinkled shirt that probably hadn't been changed in days. The confident, silver-haired physician who'd charmed nurses and impressed administrators was gone, replaced by a bitter drunk with nothing left to lose. "Miles Conrad," he said, stepping out from behind a van as I walked toward my rental car. "Dr. Holcroft." I kept walking, keys ready. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do." He moved to block my path. Up close, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "You destroyed my life." "You destroyed your own life. I just documented it." "Bullshit. You fabricated evidence, manipulated recordings, set us up. The motel clerk identified you both. The payroll records are straight from the hospital database. Your own words are on those recordings. Nobody's that lucky. Nobody just happens to catch their wife cheating with that much detail." I stopped walking and looked at him. "You want to know how I caught you? You got sloppy, expensive soap on her scrubs, overtime claims that didn't match the schedule, text messages on an unlocked phone. You thought I was too stupid to notice, but I notice everything. You son of a bitch. I'm not the one who threw away a medical career to have an affair with someone else's wife." Holcroft's face darkened. "Do you have any idea what you've cost me? 20 years building my reputation gone. The medical board is reviewing my license. I can't get a job anywhere." "Good." "Good?" His voice rose. "You think it's good that you've destroyed 2 people's lives?" "I think it's justice. You stole money, violated your professional ethics, and betrayed the trust of everyone who worked with you. The fact that you're facing consequences is exactly what should happen. I loved her. You loved sleeping with her. There's a difference." Holcroft stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. "You have no idea what love is. When's the last time you made Talia feel special? When's the last time you took her somewhere nice, bought her something beautiful, made her feel like more than a roommate? When's the last time you paid for a motel room with your own money instead of stealing it from the hospital?" He swung at me then, a wild, drunken haymaker that I saw coming from a mile away. I stepped back, let his momentum carry him forward, and watched him stumble. "You want to add assault to your list of problems?" I asked. "I want to add murder," he snarled, regaining his balance. "That seems like an overreaction." But he was coming at me again, and this time he looked more focused. I'm not a fighter, never have been, but I'm not helpless either. When he grabbed for my shirt, I twisted away and brought my knee up hard into his stomach. He doubled over, gasping, and I stepped back to give myself room. "This is stupid, Wade. Walk away." "Can't walk away," he wheezed. "Got nothing left to walk away to." "That's not my problem." "It's going to be." He straightened up, and I saw the knife in his hand, a small folding blade probably from his pocket. Not big, but big enough to do damage. "Jesus, Wade, put that away." "You took everything from me. Everything. My job, my reputation, my future. Even Talia won't see me anymore. Because you're a drunk with a knife in a parking lot. Can you see how that might be unappealing?" "Shut up." He lunged forward, the blade extended. I grabbed a handful of gravel from the parking lot and threw it in his face. While he was blinking and cursing, I kicked him in the knee as hard as I could. He went down screaming, the knife skittering away across the asphalt. I picked it up and threw it under a parked car. "Stay down, Wade." But he was already trying to get up, favoring his injured leg. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." I pulled out my phone and called 911. "I need police at Regional Medical Center parking lot. Man with a knife just tried to attack me." Holcroft heard me talking to the dispatcher and tried to run. With his bad knee, he made it about 20 feet before collapsing again. The police arrived in 5 minutes. 2 patrol cars, 4 officers, all business. They found the knife where I'd thrown it, took statements from both of us, and arrested Holcroft for assault with a weapon. "You'll need to come to the station to file a formal complaint," one of the officers told me. "Absolutely." As they loaded Holcroft into the back of a patrol car, he looked at me through the window with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he mouthed. But it was over. 3 hours later, I'd filed my statement and was driving home to my quiet house. Holcroft was in jail, facing criminal charges that would likely result in prison time. His medical license was gone, his reputation destroyed, his future reduced to whatever job he could find with a felony conviction on his record. Talia called that evening. "I heard what happened," she said. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Wade's in jail." "I know. His lawyer called me." And nothing. I'm not bailing him out. I'm not testifying on his behalf. I'm not having anything more to do with him." "Smart choice." "Miles, I need to tell you something. About the divorce." "What about it?" "I'm not going to contest it. You can have the house, the assets, whatever you want." "What changed your mind?" "Seeing what Wade became when things got difficult. Seeing what I became. I don't like who I was with him, and I don't like who I was to you." "Okay. I'm going to move back to Boston. My sister says I can stay with her until I find a job." "Good luck with that. Your termination from the hospital will follow you." "I know. I'll figure something out." There was a long pause. "Miles? Yeah? I really am sorry for all of it. I know you are. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I thought about it. "Maybe. Someday. But not today." "I understand." After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen and looked around the house that would soon be entirely mine. It felt different already, not like the home Talia and I had built together, but like a place where I could start over. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Talia didn't contest anything, and her lawyer advised her to accept the settlement rather than risk having all the evidence presented in open court. Wade Holcroft pled guilty to assault with a weapon and was sentenced to 18 months in prison. The medical board revoked his license permanently. The hospital sued him for restitution of the stolen wages, plus interest and penalties. I heard through Leah that Talia found a job at a clinic in Boston, not as a nurse, but as a medical assistant. The pay was less than half what she'd made at Regional Medical, but it was honest work. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was promoted to senior lab technician with a substantial raise. The hospital administration had been impressed with my dedication to institutional integrity, and my supervisor recommended me for advancement. I used part of the raise to take a vacation, 2 weeks in Ireland, something I'd always wanted to do but never could afford when I was supporting Talia's expensive tastes. On my last night in Dublin, I sat in a pub near my hotel and raised a pint to the memory of my marriage, not to mourn it, but to celebrate its ending. For 15 years, I'd been half of something that wasn't working. Now I was whole again, and the future stretched out ahead of me full of possibilities. The bartender, a friendly man with a thick accent, asked what I was celebrating. "The end of my night shift," I told him. He nodded like that made perfect sense. "Well then, here's to new beginnings." To new beginnings. I drank my beer and watched the sun set over the Irish countryside, thinking about how sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is discovering that the people you trusted never deserved your trust at all. When I got home to Maine, I put the house on the market. It sold in 3 weeks to a young couple who reminded me of Talia and me 15 years ago, full of hope and plans for the future. I bought a smaller place closer to the coast, with a view of the ocean and room for the workshop I'd always wanted. On clear mornings, I can sit on my deck with coffee and watch the sunrise over the water. Sometimes I think about Talia, wonder if she's happy in Boston, if she's learned anything from what happened. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. She's part of a life I used to live, and I'm more interested in the life I'm living now. Last week, Leah asked if I wanted to go to dinner sometime, not as friends, but as something more. I said yes. We're taking it slow, but there's something there worth exploring. She knows the whole story. Everyone at the hospital does. But she says what impresses her isn't that I caught my wife cheating, but that I handled it with such precision and patience. You could have just confronted them, she said. Most people would have. Most people don't work in a lab, I replied. When you're used to analyzing evidence and drawing conclusions, you tend to approach problems systematically. Is that what I am? A problem to be solved? No, I said. You're a possibility to be explored. She smiled at that. Leah has a great smile, warm and genuine in a way that Talia's never was. Tonight, we're going to a concert in Portland. Nothing fancy, just a local band that plays blues and classic rock. But it's something I want to do, with someone who wants to do it with me, and that makes all the difference. The night shift is over. It's time to see what the day brings.